menopause at the moment, just before we get started. So I'm Susanna. My yoga business is called The Yoga, and I'm also the lead tutor for the teacher training course in Glasgow, which is run by Yoga Scotland, which is like the equivalent of British Wheel for yoga, but British version. Oh, am I not doing a slideshow? Of course I'm not, so I wanted to do this so you could see it. So yoga can help hormonal fluctuations. So obviously in menopause, the hormones have to re-find a new balance. It takes usually a couple of years. And what we're doing in yoga is we're helping the body to rebalance effectively. So that means easing the transition between premenopause and perimenopause, and then perimenopause, menopause, and then beyond. And can help hot flashes as well. One thing that's important about hot flashes for a lot of women is that feeling stressed brings them on. So we have a kind of double-edged sword of someone feels stressed that they're going to have a hot flash, or they can feel it rising. Then they go, oh my goodness, don't want this to happen. And that, of course, makes it worse. So with yoga, what we can do is we can help the body to find a new way of responding to hot flashes so that there is less stress involved, so that the actual experience of the hot flash is less intense. And it also helps sleep problems. So that's for everyone, that's not just menopause. So yoga can release tension. In menopause, there's a 34% increase in anxiety and depression, which is a very high increase. And yoga activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxing system, which lets everything feel like it's all okay. And it can uplift. So it can give that feeling of gentle lift and release, which can relieve sensations of depression. It can also release tension, because part of the tension issue is that there's lower estrogen in menopause, and that creates part of the issues, part of the problems of feeling increased anxiety. So lovely women for you here. Yoga can reduce aging. It's not going to change everything. It's not going to make everything go backwards, I don't think. But let's kind of hold that space and not be too presumptuous. But it can do a variety of things that are so important for keeping you healthy in the kind of menopause years and moving into having passed through menopause. So for one thing is resistance-based movements can increase bone strength. And that and the weight bearing can add strength to reduce the chances of osteoporosis or reduce the effect of osteoporosis. So sometimes you might know for your own personal history that you've got a tendency to osteoporosis. So what we'd always be looking for is to bring it to a more positive place. So whether you do have it and you're just reducing it, whether you're trying to make sure that doesn't happen to you. And the other thing is it maintains mobility of the joints, which is obviously vitally important to us being able to move freely, to feel good as well. And then the last one, yoga can help. So what we're going to do today, the yoga we're going to do today is going to be restorative, calm, and include some somatic movement, which is kind of calming, left-right centered movements, to help bring the hormones into balance, to reduce anxiety, and to gently lift the spirits. And a little bit here is just one of the articles about menopause and yoga, and there are a number of them, but it's quite a nice one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop screen sharing. We're going to go back to yoga. So to start with, we're going to come onto our backs. So if you want to just make sure that you can see comfortably, so that when you're looking at me, you're not having to strain. So you might want to adjust your mat so that you can see me easily. And normally it's helpful for me to be able to see you in a yoga class. Now, the recording is only going to record me now. So if you're okay to put your cameras on, it just means that I can see roughly what you're doing, and then I can potentially help if there are some issues or some things that would be helpful to go through. Before we go any further, if anyone wants to put anything in the chat, if there were anything particular going on for you today, as opposed to another day, then Adriana could unmute herself and just say someone, so that if you, or actually if you put in the chat to Adriana, so that it's not going to everyone. So if there were any particular issues, I would know what the issue was, so that I could help you with that today. Is that okay, Adriana? I imagine everyone's fine and it's just a normal day, but I'm just aware every so often in life things can become unusual, and we can have things that we weren't expecting to have. So to start with, we're going to come onto our backs, and you're going to have your knees bent. So from lying on your back, so you're going to allow your hips to settle and widen onto the floor. So there's a feeling, even if you lift your hips and then bring them back down, you'll feel it's almost like the pelvis kind of widens and eases onto the ground. And from here, you might feel totally comfortable. This might be like, oh, thank goodness, I'm lying down. And with the knees bent up, it takes any pressure out of the lower back. If you were at the moment to be feeling, oh gosh, I still feel really, really tired and I just would like to feel easier again, you can take pillows and just put them underneath your knees, which creates a little bit of a bend at the back of the knees, which can release the back further. So it's entirely up to you whether that's something that you'd like to do just now or whether you're happy in your own space. And you're just going to, while you're here, you're just going to take a moment to notice this moment and how you are. So you're going to notice, how does your physical body feel? How are you feeling inside of yourself? And just running through for you, there are many different symptoms of menopause, and you might have some of them, you might have few of them. You might be thinking, well, I'm not menopausal at all at the moment, but this is something that's going to happen at some point in my life. And I'm actually here for things that are nothing to do with menopause, and that's absolutely fine too. So just see if you can release your shoulders down a little bit further. And what we're doing is we're just taking a moment to reflect on where we are right now, that kind of internal perception and awareness. You're going to bring one knee up now. You're going to take your hand onto your knee and you're going to make little circles with your knee. So if you imagine that you're making a circle about the size of a little clementine, a little tiny orange. So it's a very, very easy circle. And you're just going to come round in one direction. So you're feeling that easing out of the hip. And then we're going to take that little circle round in the opposite direction. Just enjoying that feeling of mobility in this joint. You're going to go back to the first direction. You're going to see if you want to make the movement bigger. You might do, you might not. It doesn't matter if it becomes bigger. What matters is that it feels right for you, so that you have a feeling that this joint is a happy place to be moving. And then you're going to take your knee round in the opposite direction. You're going to bring that knee all the way in towards you. Give it that little hug in, so we get that release down of the hands, release wide of the shoulders. And then we're going to come to the opposite side. So hands rested onto your knee, your other hand can be wherever you'd like it to be. Starting circling whichever direction you want, but just that little tiny circle. So it's really, really good for releasing off any tension within the hip joint. Sometimes the smaller movements are even more effective than the bigger ones. So circling round and then in the opposite direction. And you might notice this hip might be slightly different from the other one. You're going to come back to your first direction and you're going to see if your hip wants to make a wider movement. So you're just going to see if that feels good and right today. So just easing out and round, and then back in the opposite direction. And then you're going to let your knee come, in fact, let your knee come in towards you. So give it that little hug in. So nice drawing, steady in, tailbone stays down on the ground, head and neck are relaxed. And then settle your foot down and onto the ground. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little bit of somatic movement. We're going to start off with simple movement and then we can wind it in a little bit. So you're going to let the soles of your feet come a little bit off the floor, so your knees can come slightly wide, so that we can take our knees wide and together. And then you're going to take your hands above your head, and I've just got my hands kind of lightly interlinked, but you can have one on top of the other if you would like, so that your elbows can come wide and together. So what we're going to do is you're just going to move one elbow to start with. So you're going to breathe, use your breath. So you're going to breathe in to let it move up or down and then out the other way. So you're just using your breath to inhale the elbow up and down. So you're just focusing on this one shoulder at the moment. You're going to let that elbow settle to a neutral position and move to your second elbow. Be really mindful if there's been any strain or tension through the shoulders or elbows. And do make the movement smaller or leave it out if there have been any frozen shoulder issues. So again, you're just using your breath to guide you on the length of the movement so that your breath synchronizes with the movement and you feel in a settled place as you do this. Letting that elbow become neutral. And then you're going to move into one of your legs. So one knee is going to roll out to the side and back. So again, use your breath. Make the movement as small or as big as feels right. Notice the way that you roll onto the outer edge of the foot. So the contact between the foot and the floor changes considerably. And then the other leg. Just enjoying that nice, steady, easy movement. Very settling movement. And then letting that knee come up to the center. We're going to do both elbows together now. So the elbows come in and out. With your breath, whatever speed of your breath is, use that so that your breath feels natural. And one last time. And then to the legs, knees come wide and together. Remember, this can be a small movement, so it could just be a tiny little micro movement if that's better for your energy levels or better for your pelvis, hips, body. And then breathing yourself back to neutral arms, neutral legs. What we're going to do now can take a little bit of kind of focus. We're going to take the opposite knee and opposite elbow wide. So if you imagine you're going to take your left knee and your right elbow wide and then back to the center. And then opposite side. So we're working across the body. So first of all, you're going to get into that rhythm. And it might be a rhythm that you find quite easy, or it might be sometimes you feel a little bit elbows and knees and get a little bit caught up. If that happens, just come back to going nice and steadily through it. Using your breath. And then notice at some point, as you get relaxed into doing it, you might find that your head wants to move as well. If it does, just notice which way it likes to move in response to the elbow and the opposite knee moving out. So what we're doing is we're doing a gentle twist movement as we do this. And you might find that your head moves away from your knee. So the twist very gently comes up through your spine. But it might be different for you, and that's okay too. And then after this one, you're going to bring yourself back into even. So back to pelvis settled on the floor, knees just going straight up. At the moment, your hands are overhead, but you might feel like you'd like to bring them down beside your sides now, and you might just let your arms become really heavy on the ground. Take a couple of breaths here. We're going to come up into bridge pose now. So bridge pose is where feet are on the floor and we lift the hips off the floor. But what we're going to have the option of doing is we're going to have the option of coming, I can find my blocks, onto something. So what I've got is I've got a block, and you've probably not got one of these at home, but you can use cushions and you can use a book or 2 books as long as they're not too slippy. And what we're going to do is you're going to lift your hips up and you're going to settle something underneath your hips so that you end up in bridge pose, but we're in a very supported bridge pose. Now, if you know for yourself, first of all, sorry, I should say, make sure that the block is not touching the back of your waist. It wants to be quite low down so that it's supporting your sacrum and your pelvis, but the back curves are entirely natural and easy. And from here, you might find, like for me, I can tell this block is quite high. If I want to be really restful, I'm going to take a smaller thing. And if I want to make it do more energetic, I can flip the block, which again wouldn't be possible if you've got books, but you could make a higher stack if you want it to feel more energetic. And it might be that from here, that you really want to activate your legs so that the block is there, but you're not using it that much. So you can vary how high your bridge pose is and how much activity you put into your legs. I would advise making sure that your feet remain active on the floor. So while we're doing restorative yoga, it's not that we've just kind of flopped into it and we're just kind of hanging out entirely. We do want that awareness and aliveness in the body. And the feet are really, really good. If the feet are a little bit active, so a little bit like you've got animal paws instead of feet, so they feel like they're touching the ground and you can sense the ground beneath you. That puts a kind of quiet energy up through the legs and keeps you steady and secure. And you're just going to let the upper half of the body relax and open. So we've got that opening in the chest. We've got that gentle lift through the back of the body, and your head is heavy on the ground. So you can work with the level of activity you want for your legs, whether that's come into traditional bridge pose so that you're completely self-holding within your weight. But it depends, because sometimes our energy levels are such that actually we benefit far more from slowing down, allowing the body to rest, and then doing more energetic things when we are at a different space in our day. So just allow the breath to be easy here. And notice how you feel here. So bridge pose is a fantastic pose for relieving fatigue, relieving depression. It's also a great pose to aid not having insomnia rather than aiding insomnia. So it's a really, really lovely pose to come to when life's just feeling a little bit challenging. It can be a really nice place to rest, settle, and restore. And notice where it is in your body that you're breathing right now. Whether you're towards the lungs area, whether you're towards your belly area. Taking an easy breath out. And we're going to take the block out and come back to hips on the ground or the support that you've got. So you're just going to take your hand, slide it out, and settle yourself all the way back down to the ground. It's interesting when you take support back out again, you suddenly go, oh gosh, it felt like a tiny thing that I was on. And all of a sudden your back says, oh wow, that was actually quite an interesting, good movement. It's a really good way to rejuvenate the body. Okie dokie. So from here, you're going to roll yourself over and onto one side. So you're going to come to side lying just for a moment, so you can take your arm underneath your head so that you feel settled. And you're going to notice how you feel in this moment. So just how you feel right now. And then when you feel ready, once you feel like, yeah, ready to move again, if you want to bring yourself into all fours. So you're going to take a comfortable all fours position. For some people, that means rolling over the mat or finding a cushion underneath your knees so that your knees are happy on the ground. For some people, it means taking a block or something that you can have your hands on so that your fingers trail over the sides. When we do this, it takes pressure off the wrists, and I'm aware that since you all work in Twinkle, it means quite a lot of computers, potentially. And sometimes relieving the hands by dropping the fingers down like this or over a cushion means that you're going to take any pressure off the wrists. If anyone was to feel like their wrists even didn't like this, you can come down onto your elbows if that's preferable for you. It's really important, particularly when you're working a lot with your hands and your wrists, that you are taking care of them. So from all fours, we're going to do a really simple cat-cow. So we're going to be lifting the back up towards the ceiling, releasing your head down, and then lengthening out, looking between your hands or beyond. So you're just going to go back and forth with your breathing. When you think about that lifting up of the back of the waist, can you start with the movement in the pelvic floor? So the pelvic floor lifts and then the tummy lifts and then the back rounds up. I know that might be quite a lot to think about, but that's our safest way where we really strengthen the body from the center. Because what we don't want to do is work the abdominals and then press out through the pelvic floor or weaken the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is really, really important. And obviously the whole pelvic area, particularly in menopause. The other thing that we're doing here is we're bringing a really nice flexibility into the spine. So just this simple movement of arching one way and then the other way is really, really good for the flexibility and movement of the spine. And that's a lot of where we find our sense of energy, which is how our spine feels. After you've done this a couple of times, if it feels good, you can roll up through the spine. So you lift up towards the ceiling, and then you just slowly, slowly take your hips back towards your heels. And that will give you a lovely stretch out through your back. And then you're going to creep your way back and into all fours. We're going to come up to dog pose from here. So we're going to tuck our toes under. Dog pose is the one where we slide our hips back and then up. So I'm just giving you a quick image of it at the moment. Some of you might know it really well. It's really important. If this one doesn't suit you for any reason, you can do it down on your elbows and you can do it onto a sofa. So you're just lifting the hips slightly higher rather than all the way up. But I'll talk you through this one. As I can see, so far everyone looks quite happy. So coming to dog pose, you just draw your hips back towards your heels, activate through the toes and the soles of the feet, and then up through the hips, down with the head. Releasing through the head, through the shoulders, getting a little bit of length through the back of the legs. Take an easy breath and then let your knees come down and onto the ground. And let your head rest all the way into your hands or onto the floor. So take that easy breath, notice how you feel right now. So what we're going to have the option of is if your body just feels like, oh my goodness, I'm quite tired, I'm really happy that we're down in child's pose, then stay here. It's a good indication that you've just found the right place. And if you feel that little bit more energized or that little bit kind of more like you'd like to move more, we'll come into another dog pose. And what we're going to do, or have the option of doing this time, is if you take either your cushion or a block and you're going to place it behind your feet. So I've placed it, what's that, about 2 inches behind my feet, so that when I come up into dog pose, I can settle my heels onto the block, which is a really nice way of making dog pose feel a little bit more supported. So from your all fours, you're going to draw your hips back. And remember, if you've got a block for your heels, you might want to adjust it when we get here. It might not be quite the right place, and that's okay. So you just come down and then up, back up again. Steady down through the heels of the hands, lift up through the hips, settle your heels onto the support or block if you've chosen to go with that. And see if you can find a real connection of grounding through the feet. So one through the balls of the feet, which are already touching the floor. But now can you get that feeling of connection down through the heels as well, even though the heels are lifted? And you can work with the feeling of lengthening through the legs, but we're still coming back to that feeling of allowing the body to settle into this. So take a couple of breaths here, allow yourself to ease and lengthen. And then at some point, whenever you feel ready, just bring yourself back and into child's pose. And when you come into child's pose, heavy head, relaxed shoulders, easy breath. And take a moment. So just to notice the breath in the back of your body. You'll notice that feel of the rise and the fall of the breath. And when you feel ready, when your breathing is settled, if you bring yourself back and into all fours. We're going to come up to standing now. So we're going to walk ourselves up and through a forward bend. So you're just going to have your toes tucked under at the back. You're going to walk your hands back in towards your knees. And if this way doesn't suit you, please do a different way. You're going to press into your hands, lift up with your hips. And you can walk your hands onto your thighs so that you have got your hands settled onto your legs somewhere comfortable. It might be higher, it might be lower, so that you can just forward fold for a moment. And it might be for some of you that you're lower down again. What's really important is that your back is very, very comfortable with where you are. And that means all the way through your spine, all the way from the pelvis, all the way up to your head and your neck. And then bend through your knees, press down through your feet to bring yourself up into standing. Move this a little bit. There we go. Okie dokie. So from here, we're going to come on to some form of a support. So you could be, I've got a kind of stool thing. You could have a bit of wall. You could have a bit of table. It's anything that's somewhere between kind of thigh to waist height is ideal. So whether it's on your bit of wall or something else that you've got, a bit of window ledge might do the thing. This stool can move a little bit. It's ideal to have something that's really heavy and doesn't move at all, but we're not going to be doing this so strongly that you're going to be in any danger, but in an ideal world, find something that can't move. So you're going to take a step forwards. So in fact, let's start standing in front of your support so that you're just a little bit way back from it. You can take your hands onto it and it feels comfortable. So your hips are over your heels, shoulders are relaxed away. And from here, you're going to take one foot back. You're just going to take a natural step for you. So I've said natural step. If any of you feeling like you've got loads of energy, you're welcome to take a big step. But since we're doing a restorative class, think about that small, within your range of movement, settled, happy place. You're going to, the hand on the same side as your front foot is going to stay where it is on the support, and your free hand's going to travel out and round somewhere to the side. So we come into a version of triangle pose. It's really important, both feet have got that feeling of a little bit of activity in the feet, so that you can feel the contact of the floor beneath your feet. And that we've got that feeling of gently being able to move round and open through the rib cage to allow your free hand to come up. And it should still feel like you can move your hands, your legs if you wanted to. We've not come so far into it that we feel kind of tight and stuck. You're going to bring your hand back onto the support, walk yourself forwards, and then take your opposite foot back. So again, comfortable, natural step back. There's a slight hint of bend in the back of the knees, just a hint so that the knees aren't locked or tight. Hand on the same side as the front foot is going to stay steady where it is. Other hand's going to come out to the side, and then just gradually open yourself out and round if it feels good. Make sure that you're still breathing steadily, evenly, smoothly. And then bring yourself back to facing the short edge of your mat, back to both hands on your support. And then take a step forwards and come back to standing. So back to just standing in your own space. And if you allow your weight to come slightly into the balls of your feet, so you feel how your hips can come forwards. And then let your weight come into your heels, so you notice how your hips can come back. We're going to do that one more time. So as the hips come forwards, do you notice how there's a kind of softening and easing through the front of the body, which could be very nice, but if it's a habit, it's not going to be great. And then can you take your hips slightly back? And you notice that as the hips come back, without having to do anything, you've got a little lift all the way up through your tummy to your diaphragm. And it's like it's just a natural lift. And you don't want to come so far back that you're into your heels and you can't stand up properly. So the feet need to stay steady on the floor. And when the feet are strong on the floor and the arches are lifting away from the floor, then the pelvic floor starts to get a lift as well. So we can do all sorts of things that allow the body to find the strength and support of the muscles that it needs without having to do a massive, great big deal. So what we're going to do now is if you take your hands onto the support and you're going to take one foot back again. Again, if anyone wants to, you can take a much bigger step if you've got loads of energy that you'd like to play with today. What we're going to do here is we're going to do a little bit of that cat-cow movement. So can you gently arch your back and you can look towards the wall in front of you or slightly beyond. And then can you round your back and look down in the direction of your feet. And you're going to do this a couple of times with your breath. So what we're doing is we're using the natural movements of the spine. We're using that forward backward movement. We've done side opening, we've done twisting. All of these movements are really, really important for the body and also really, really important for your ongoing health. So that we keep our back supple, comfortable, alive and well. Because if you imagine all your nerves for every part of your body go through the spine. And then bring yourself back to neutral so that we can swap over to the opposite side. So you're just going to take the opposite leg in front. So same thing, first of all, just settle yourself so the shoulders are moving down and away from the face. We've got a neutral spine. And then from here, we can start to round the back and look down. And then lengthen out through the front and slightly look up. Everyone will be slightly different about how their spine wants to move and how much their spine wants to move. And it's important that it's a kind of natural movement where the whole of the back is moving as it would like, so that you can gradually, through time, through months and maybe years, start to increase that feeling of movement, but from a really settled and steady way, rather than in 2 weeks I'm going to do this perfectly sort of an ideal. It's a gradual transformation. Bring yourself back to your neutral, step yourself forwards, come back to standing for a moment. And then if you take a step back from your mat, so to get to your, back from your support thing, whatever it is, so that you can touch it, but you have to actually lean forwards to touch it. And you're going to take both hands onto your support. So it's slightly deeper forward bend now. From here, we're going to come into half moon pose. So you're going to take one foot to the back so that just the toes are touching the floor. And it might be you just stay with this. So it's really important, every single stage you can go, no, if something doesn't feel right, come back to the stage just before. From here, you can let your toes lift off the floor, but you're still pointing your toes down towards the floor. If that feels good, you can rotate your toes out towards the center of the room. And then the next little bit, if you want to, is to let your free hand come out. So we come into our full half moon pose. Nice balance for you. Bring yourself back to settled onto the support. Point your toes down towards the floor to come back to even feet. And then we're going to do the same on the opposite side. So toes step back. If that's comfortable, the leg can float up. If that feels good, the toes can rotate out and round. And then maybe the hand will come out and wide. And you can become very light on the hand on the support. You can take your hand off the support so that you can engage the balance as much as you would like. Bring your hand back onto the support. Toes face down. Foot finds the floor. We come back to nice and even. So nice and settled through the back. And take a moment to just notice how that's felt. You're going to walk yourself in towards the support so that you can come back up into stand down. And what we're going to do now is we're going to come back down to the floor and do some more work from sitting. So if you want to bring yourself to sitting back down again, and if you want to start with your legs out in front. So when we're sitting, a lot of people have slightly tight hamstrings, which makes sitting on the floor uncomfortable. So if you know you're that person, so either with lower back issues or tightness through the back of the thighs here, then sitting on the block is going to make that much more comfortable. So this is one option. So it could be from sitting, you're much happier on the block so that the lower back can lift up and we can get our natural back curves again. So that's one thing to consider. What we're going to do from here is we're going to take one knee out to the side. So it's just a case of drawing one leg in, either to the calf, to the knee, or higher, so that you've got a kind of one leg straight and one leg bent. From here, if you've got your cushions, you can bend your straight leg, put the cushion just underneath the middle of the thigh, and it really supports the leg. And then and the bent knee again underneath the thigh so that it supports the legs and you can feel really comfortable here. This one on the straight leg, some of you might prefer it towards your knee joint. It depends on your hips and legs. What we're wanting to do is we're wanting to find the position for the cushions so that when you're here, you feel like you've not put a lot of effort into the legs, so that you feel quite settled. So we're supporting the body to release into the things that you've got. And it might be you've just got the floor and you don't want a pile of cushions. That's absolutely fine too. You're going to have one hand on each knee. You're going to get a feeling of lifting up and through the front of the pelvis. So we get that length up and through the body. And then the shoulders release down, the hands rest onto the legs. Steady through the feet. So we've got a little bit of happy activity in the feet. And then your hand that's on the bent knee is just going to come onto the floor somewhere. Try and just let your hand come down rather than think, oh gosh, I must get it over there. Just try and let it do that really chilled, kind of like that, the floor, lovely. And then we're going to twist round from here. So the hip on the side of the straight leg, it's as if we're moving in a diagonal across the tummy to the opposite side of the rib cage. So both hands are relaxed, both shoulders are relaxed, and both feet have got a little bit of activity in them. But the main activity is through this kind of central band of you. So through the rib cage, through the waist, might come into the shoulders, might come into the neck. You can allow your head to just gently move around. If there have been any issues with migraine, just make sure that this feels really gentle, smooth and fluid, particularly in the neck area. Take an easy breath here. And then bring yourself back to one hand on each knee. We're going to come to the opposite side now. So one leg straightens out, or opposite leg straightens out, other one comes in. Think about support underneath the thigh, underneath the knee or the thigh of a straight leg. Just where feels right for you, so that when you sit here, you've got a feeling of both sit bones getting really steady on the ground. And there's not that feeling that your body's going, whoa, don't like this, it's a little bit too strong. And the feet, even if that's kind of a massive exaggeration of what you might feel, but when we feel a bit uncomfortable, it's like the body sits lighter on the floor. What you want is your pelvis to be able to go really like, oh yeah, happy, found the ground. And then we work with the lift and the lightness through the upper part of the body, but we've got a really good steady place to start from. You're going to let one hand rest onto each knee, both shoulders relax down. Take an easy breath. And then bring the hand on the bent knee to just somewhere on the floor again. So just comfortable place, wherever it settles. Stay with that heavy feeling through the lower pelvis. Then work with that feeling from the hip on the straight side across the body, all the way to the opposite side of the rib cage. And then let both shoulders release down. It's a nice, easy breath. Gently move the head very, very fluidly, particularly if there have been migraine issues. Bring yourself back to the center. And we're going to come to the first side again. So you're going to adjust whatever support it is that you've got. You're going to take one hand onto each leg. This time you're going to take the hand that's on the knee side, you're going to take it onto the back of your body. So it might settle onto the back of your pelvis, so just kind of spread and widen the back of the hand onto your pelvis. Or you might want to just let it come around the back of your waist so that it feels like you've got that contact through the back. Hand that's down on the straight leg, you're going to put just a little bit of pressure through the hand, and then you're going to ease yourself out and round. So going in the same direction towards the bent knee, and keeping that length in the spine. Shoulders keep soft, breathing stays steady. And you're enjoying being here. It's always a really good indication that you've got your yoga pose just right when you feel really quite happy to be in the pose you're in. When you're in a pose and you're going, oh my goodness, I hope this ends soon, it can be really good for strengthening and a variety of things. But a kind of ideal practice has all the qualities of effort and also the qualities of enjoyment. Bring yourself back into the center so that one hand settles onto each knee. And then we're going to even ourselves up by doing the opposite side. So do adjust your pillows, give yourself or any support so that you're giving yourself really the kind of time and looking after that you deserve and can benefit from. So first of all, just finding your comfortable position, lengthening slightly out through the hand on the straight leg. Hand that's on the bent leg side is going to go onto the back of your waist or onto the back of your sacrum, the pelvis. Shoulders both relax down. And then you're just going to spiral round. So very, very steady in the pelvis, getting that little lightness as if it runs up and through the tummy that then can bring the rib cage round. Think about where you'd like your head to move to. Find that ideal balance of a little bit of effort and also feeling at ease. Bringing yourself all the way back to the center and taking both legs out in front. We're going to do a forward bend from here, and a forward bend is in some ways one of those poses in yoga which can bring us into a place of slightly more challenge. So to start with, can you take a couple of cushions or something underneath your knees so that there's no none of the great amazing aspirations to look like you're going to insta ready or whatever it's called. So you're just like, oh, happy place, relaxed. And you're then going to use any other cushions that you've got so that you give yourself some support on top of your legs. So I've got this great big bolster thing, which I'm sure you've not got, but you could have other cushions. I've got a couple more here. You're going to put something on your knees so that when you come forwards, you're coming forwards in a way that feels really, really amazingly fantastic. So we don't want to be coming forward and thinking, oh, we're doing a load of work. Remember, this is restorative class. Lots of times to do loads of work, but now is not so much it. So soft through the back of the knees. If you've not got quite enough cushions, you can take your heads onto your elbows onto the cushions and your hands up, so you can rest your head into your hands. And it's still that you want to find a nice stretch for you. So you're just going to fold forwards and release your head down in any way. So if when you folded forwards with a variety of cushions and support things, that you felt a bit like, oh gosh, I've just not really got space to move here, I feel slightly claustrophobic, that would suggest you've got too much support and that you want to take a little bit away. But remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find just the right amount. And just the right amount is that you feel really good, you feel happy, you feel settled, and you also feel that you can rest while also, even at the same time, feeling that lovely feeling of muscles just beginning to melt and lengthen and ease out. And you might settle here and notice after a while it slightly changes. So after a while you might go, oh gosh, actually I'm completely comfortable here, but I'm not quite enjoying this anymore. So you could just walk your blocks a little bit away or your support a little bit away, so you can come a bit lower and still be supported. And you really are trying to release the head. So the release of the head is so important, if you like, psychologically, or how we relate to the world. So the release of the head is releasing senses of depression or feelings of depression. It's releasing things that we try and work out with our head that we can't. Because there's some things in life which just are, and we just have to deal with. And somehow coming back into the body can really help us to be whole with whatever it is. So just taking a couple of breaths into the back of the body, really enjoying where you are just now. Making it your own so that you adapt and change to what's going to suit you, what's right for you. Allowing the head to go heavy. And it's as if you can let the thoughts just travel down and into the ground or the support. And then take a slightly deeper breath. And then in your own time, work yourself back up into sitting. We're going to come to do some relaxation now, you'll be glad to know. And there's a couple of ways of doing it. So I'm just going to show you really quickly different positions you can use. And it depends on you what you like. The one that I'm going to suggest is taking your legs up and onto something. So I'm going to show you it on a stool. But it could be onto a sofa, and it could be that you have your legs on the wall to do this. So you sit close in towards the thing, you bring your legs up, lie yourself down, and then from here, you take a block, just like we did with bridge pose, right under the sacrum, so that we can rest with the legs up. So basically it's a supported inversion with a little bit of a back bend, which makes it really, really restorative and really, really amazing place to relax. If this isn't going to suit you for any reason though, you could be on your back with your knees bent up. You could have your legs lying out and away over cushions, which is a really nice way of supporting the lower back if you know that you just want to lie out. And it's really important that you're taking all the support that you need so that you can be really, truly comfortable here. And that involves potentially putting on a jumper, putting on socks so that you're cozy enough, because remember, you will cool down a little bit if you like, because we're going to lie here for like 3, 4, 5 minutes. So it's really important you're taking whatever it is you need to be settled. It's quite nice having feet above the heart, so resting on the resting on a sofa or a table or on the wall, because it allows us to be the other way up for a while. And being the other way up is really restorative for the body, for the circulation, for the heart, and for the brain. And if you've got your legs up, think about the feeling that we've got that tiny little bit of a back bend, which is why we want the hips often to be that little bit lifted off the floor, because that will just naturally keep the curves of your spine. Sometimes when we take the legs up the wall, we can try and straighten the legs too much, which can make the back curve and round like a baby's back. Whereas what we're wanting the hips to be down, the shoulders to be down, and that gentle lift of the back of the waist, if you like a little bit of a bridge in the back of the waist. So is that gentle arch. Now I'm aware some of you might not have done this pose, and I can see a lot of you are set up and happy or appear pretty happy with where you are. If anyone's not sure and wants to unmute and ask, do feel free if you're not quite sure. And then from here, you let your head go really, really heavy. And at any point, if you want to bring yourself to lying onto the ground, you can just do that. So it's not the sort of really like some yoga classes are a bit like, once you've settled here, you've got to stay here. I'm not so much like that. If you want to move and change, you can. So from here, I'm just going to give you a short relaxation. So it's the feeling of initially of getting yourself comfortable. So that's permission to shuggle, change, nudge, just find what it is that's right for you. It might just be moving the elbows, it might be moving your hips, might be putting something slightly else underneath your feet. Find what it is that's going to help your body to feel really happy and ready to settle. And then let your head go really heavy. Release down through the head. Allow the forehead to feel slightly smooth. Eyelids get heavy. Cheeks relax. Rest into the back of the shoulders. Feel the contact with your body to the floor. Notice the ease of your breathing. Release down through the pelvis. So the pelvis feels really grounded, strong on the ground, which allows your legs to relax. You can allow your legs to feel really heavy. Relaxing all the way into the feet, the soles of the feet, the toes. Relaxing the hands, fingers, palms of the hands. Taking a deep and easy breath out. And enjoying a moment where there's nothing needed of you. Just being yourself right now, as you are, is absolutely enough. And then you're going to bend your knees in, and you're going to take any blocks out so that you come down and onto the ground. You might want to bend your knees and come over onto one side. Then you're going to start to bring a little bit of movement back to your body. So you might want to stretch out like a cat. There might be a particular movement that you know that you want to make. Or you might just feel very quiet. And then when you feel ready, you're going to bring yourself up and to sitting. I'm aware that people have got meetings, so you are welcome to pop off to your 11 o'clock at any point. I'm going to stay just for a minute or two. So if any of you would like to do a little bit of breathing just for a minute, that we can do that. So what we're going to do for the breathing is you're just going to breathe in, and then you're going to breathe out through your mouth, and you're going to allow the lips to be open as you do this. Just as if you're blowing the breath out and away from you. So an easy breath in, and then breath out through the lips. Then if you want to, you can bring in the cooling breath that we did in the Yoga for Breathing session, which will at some point hopefully be video access if you haven't been there. And this is taking the tongue into a little straw like this, or rolling the tongue back onto the top of your mouth so that the straw goes along the way. And you can do it really subtly so that nobody can see, or you can do it very dramatically so you can feel the maximum benefits of it. And one last time. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've got real benefits out of that and some tips for taking forwards into embracing menopause, or at least getting through it as gracefully and happily as possible. I'm very happy to stay on and answer any questions if you have further questions or any individual issues. But what I'll do just now is I'll pop the video recording off so that there's that space.